Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lora Rolling and this is part 19 of the Merry Christmas Ornament tutorial. This is the Merry Christmas ornament that we are making. It is so cute and colorful with all its lights. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And today we're going to be doing the unit called Top Lights D. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 18 yet, that's okay. You can do these out of order. I'll have those videos listed down below in the description. That way you can finish this one and then go back and watch those. We just have a few materials to get ready, so let's get them listed and then we can get started. Let's go. So the beads that we're going to be using in today's video are all Miyuki Delicas. I have opaque black, silver lined green, silver lined light blue, dyed silver lined red. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to call this black, green, blue, and red. We'll also need some beading thread and a beading needle. I like to use the Eslon Fire thread in the color Crystal, and this is 4-pound thread. You could also use a 6-pound thread if that's what you have. And then I like to use a size 10 beading needle. If all you have is a size 11 or a size 12, that would work. For implements, I like to use my long nose pliers to hold on to my thread at the end of the video. And then I cut my thread with scissors. And then today I'm going to show you how I use the fire method to end the tail. We just need to thread our needle with about 3 feet of thread and then we can get started. So I've threaded my needle and now I'm ready to pick up my first 3 beads. Let's pick up 1 green, 1 black, and 1 green. Now I'm going to take these 3 beads and I'm going to pull them down to the bottom of my thread, leaving about a 6-inch tail. Now I'm going to make a square knot. So cross over on top and then pull your tail through. And then do that again. Cross over on top and pull your tail through. So now you should have what looks like a little snowman. I'm going to put my 2 fingers in the lower loop, the one that has the beads in it. And then I'm going to tug on the tail and the long thread until that top loop turns into a knot. Like this. Now I'm going to take my tail and I'm not going to touch it to the flame. Instead, I'm just going to get it super duper close so it melts the tip. Just like that. And it turns it into this little knot. So now I'm going to take my 2 fingers that are inside the loop. I'm going to pull on the long thread until that knot touches the long thread. Now I'm going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to pull that knot down to the 3 beads until the 3 beads are in a tight little triangle. Now, if you notice, the knot is right in between those 2 beads. So I'm just going to tug the thread until that knot looks like it's coming out of one of the beads. Now, let's pick up 2 black beads. And it looks like our thread is coming out of this bead, so we're going to sew through the bead that it's not coming out of. And then we're going to try to get those beads to sit right on top of the two green beads. I like to call the ones that are close together buddy beads. So now let's pick up one green and one black bead. And we're coming out of this green bead. Let's sew through the next bead, which is black. And once again, try to get them to sit right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up two black beads, and we're coming out of this black bead. Let's sew through the green bead and the bead right below it. So when we're sewing through two beads, that means that we are stepping up and putting our thread in position to start the next row. So we've completed row number 2, and now we get to start row number 3. Let's start by picking up two black beads and sew through the next bead. And then making sure that they're sitting right on top of their buddies. Now let's pick up one black bead. Our thread is coming out of the second bead right here. So if you notice, the next bead is kind of set downward. We're going to skip the downward bead and we're going to sew through the up bead, the one that's poking up. Now let's pick up one green and one black and sew through the next. Now let's pick up one black and skipping the down bead, we're going to sew through the up bead. Now let's pick up two black beads and sew through the next. Making sure that they sit right on top of their buddies still. Now let's pick up one green bead. This is the last bead in row number 3. So what we're going to do is we're skipping the down bead. We're going to sew through the up bead and also the bead right below that. So sewing through those last two beads means that we are stepping up. And now we get to start row number 4. Let's start by picking up two black beads and sew through the next. Then one black, sew through the up. One green and sew through the up. One green and one black and sew through the next. One black and sew through the up. One black and sew through the up. Two black beads and sew through the next. Then one black and sew through the up. And one green. This is the last bead in this row. So let's skip the down bead and sew through those last two beads. And we're just going to continue doing that round and round until we've completed our triangle. Let's start row number 5 with 2 black beads. Then 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 2 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 blue. Sewing through those last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 6. Let's start with 2 black beads. One black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green and 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 blue. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we get to start row number 7. Let's start with 2 black beads, one black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black and 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 black. Sewing through the last 2 beads. And now we have actually reached the top of our triangle. We're going to continue to add around the top, but this top is not going to grow any taller. So in order to do that, let's, without picking up any beads, just sew through that next bead. And that puts our thread in position to start row number 8. Let's start with 1 black bead, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 red, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black and 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 blue, and 1 black. And now we have reached the top of our triangle again. So what we're going to do is just turn our triangle over, and that puts our thread in position to be able to start sewing down this side again. So let's start row number 9 with 1 black bead, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green, 1 green, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. And if you notice, we don't have an up bead to sew our last bead in this row. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew down that first bead on the top row. And then we're going to manipulate our new bead until it sits right where it's supposed to. And now we're coming out of the bottom of this top bead right here. So let's sew down the next bead right below it. And then sew up the bead right next to that one. Sew up that first bead again, up on the top. And then sew down the new bead that we just put on. Now our thread is in position. So let's turn our triangle back over, and you'll see that we are in position to start sewing down this row again. So let's start row number 10 with 1 black bead, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 green, 1 green, 1 red, 1 red, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. Now we're at the top of our triangle again, so let's turn our triangle over, and that puts our thread in position to start sewing down this side, which means we can start row number 11. Let's start with 1 black bead, 1 black, 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 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 red, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. And once again, we don't have an up bead to sew through, so let's sew down that top bead and then get our new bead to sit right where it's supposed to. Now we can sew down the middle bead in that second row, and then we'll sew up the bead right next to it. Sew up that middle bead on the top row and down the new bead that we just added. Now let's turn over our triangle, and we are now in position to start row number 12. Let's start with 1 black, 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 2 black beads, 1 green, 1 green, 1 black, 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 2 black beads, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. And that completes our 12 rows. Let's turn our triangle back over. And if this is the first triangle that you've done with me, you'll notice that each triangle is a little different as far as the connecting beads go. We have to add connection beads so that our units connect together so that we can finish the complete project. So on this particular unit, we're going to have connection beads on this side and on the bottom, but we're not going to have connection beads on this side. So let's start by adding 1 black bead, then 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, 1 green, 1 black, 1 black, 1 black, and 1 black. Now we are down at the corner, and what we're going to do is cap this corner with 1 black bead, and it turns it into a little point. Now let's start adding our connection beads down this side. So let's start with 1 black, then 1 black, 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 1 green, and 1 green. We're at our final corner, so let's cap it with 1 black bead. And now that one turns that corner into a point. Let's turn our triangle over one last time. And we are now going to sew up 6 beads. I like to sew up the beads that follow this quadrant line, but you can really just sew up any random bead that you want to, as long as it's 1 bead per row so that you don't show your thread at all. So let's sew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now I'm going to do what I like to call the zigzag. We're coming out of this top bead right here, or the top of this bead right here. We're going to sew down the bead right next to it. And then we're going to sew up the bead right next to that one. And that zigzag makes this last bead that we added a little more secure so it won't get loose and fall out. So let's do that again. First, let's sew up 2 beads, 1 and 2. And then we'll do another zigzag. We're coming out of the top of this bead. Let's sew down the bead right next to it. And then sew up the bead right next to that one. Now let's sew up 2 more beads. I feel that this last bead and all the new beads that we added are extra secure. They're not going to get loose. They're not going to fall out. So now it's time to cut our thread. Let's take our long nose pliers and hold on to the thread, and then take our scissors and get as close to the bead as possible without cutting the bead, and just snip off the thread. And that completes our triangle. We only need 1 of these for this project, so I will see you in a second. That was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here with me today and beading along with me. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified when the next video comes out. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks for watching.